Hello, welcome back to Refractions. I am Stephen Mallon, and I am so excited that we have curator Christopher Atkins from the Sioux City Art Center joining us today. So, hello, Chris.
Hello, how's everybody? Good to see you, Stephen.
Good to see you as
As
well.
always.
Yeah. So for people that don't know who you are and how awesome you are, can you tell us a
Yeah,
little bit about your history with photography?
sure. I am a curator here at the Sioux City Art Center. I've been here for about 2 years. Before that, I was at the Minnesota Museum of American Art in St. Paul, Minnesota. And then before that, I was at the Minneapolis Institute of Art, where I worked in the contemporary art department. And during each of those exhibit or during those museum jobs, I worked on different museum exhibitions with photography. I also am a photographer myself. I've shown my work at galleries on my website and have received some awards as well too. So I feel like knowing a little bit more about the photographic process, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the stress, the joys of that work makes it easier for me to be a curator. I find it easier to kind of really relate to artists, whether it's photographers or sculptors, to know kind of what that process is like working up towards an exhibition. So
So talk to me a little bit about exhibitions at, this museum or museums in general.
yeah,
Where and when does the genesis for the ideas? Is that like coming from you? Is that a board? What's the process?
it's different with every organization. When I was at the Minneapolis Institute of Art, we actually had a small artist panel that helped us with selecting the artists that were part of those shows. And then we would select artists from the people who submitted their proposals. When I was at the M in St. Paul, it was a much smaller museum, but a much bigger job in that I was the sole curator who worked on curating all the shows. And it's very similar here, where I'm the sole curator. I work very closely with my director on exhibitions. Um, I am the person who sort of generates the ideas for our exhibitions, but it's not sort of all done in a vacuum. I always think of myself as an institutional curator in that I represent an organization, which means that I represent a staff and I represent a board that has a mission. So I'm keeping all of those ideas in mind as artists come to me or I go to them with exhibition ideas. Um, I've thought about a lot of people talk about curators as sort of like gatekeepers. You've probably heard that term before, which to me, I don't like that term. It sounds a little bit too much control of who's in and outside of the gates. I like to think of myself more as a flashlight, kind of shining lights on different parts of the art world, if you will. Maybe some of those places have already had some light shined on them, and it's just kind of going back to them, or it's kind of digging a little bit further into areas that really haven't had any light showed on them before, like artists who are just emerging, artists who, and like right now, I'm working with some artists who are very late in their career, for example. Juliana Frio has been making work for almost 50 years. We have an exhibition coming up with an artist named Thurman Statham, who's in his 70s. So the idea of sort of shining a light on different places, but being informed by the mission and the values of our organization, what drives a lot of the decisions that we make for exhibitions. So
You mentioned the board slightly. Are they also like after the director signs off and everything, do you have to present it to a board for approval or?
no, mostly, at least in our situation here, I like to share information with the board because I want them to be informed about what we're doing. And we have it's a very unique structure that I won't get into here, but the more I can tell our stakeholders about what we're doing, the better ambassadors they become for us to say, hey, there's this great show that's coming up. We have this event that's going to happen just before the show opens. You should come because there's going to be a talk with the artist. And as people who are ultimately responsible for kind of the management, if you will, of the organization, it's just good to keep them informed. It keeps me honest. It's also good practice because I can talk and I can pitch a show to them, and I don't have a lot of time at the beginning of a board meeting. And it's also just kind of helpful for thinking about how we might write grants and perhaps even do some fundraising for our exhibitions too.
We started talking in the pre-room about the grants and everything. So
Yeah,
can we dive into that a little bit? Like how far out
sure.
are you looking for the funding and what are some tools you're using?
Sure. So to my immediate left is the calendar of our upcoming exhibitions, and it's full. I like to plan, Stephen, at least a year in advance. That way, my coworkers and I can work towards fundraising, promotions, any unique installation plans that we have. Just I'd rather work at a pace, and then also stagger our exhibitions so that as one gallery is coming down, we're not installing another gallery at the same time. So it just kind of makes everyone's lives a lot easier and less stressful. But yeah, we do a lot of fundraising for our exhibitions. Just in the past year, we've received money from the NEA, the National Endowment for the Humanities. Thank you. The Iowa Humanities Council, the Iowa Arts Council, some generous private foundations like the Gilchrist Foundation, as well as Elizabeth Firestone Graham Foundation. So we've had to go to the top to the middle tier and even some smaller organizations as well too, to kind of fill in some of the funding needs that we have. But ultimately, that's what helps us make a reputation and kind of some awareness about what we're doing here, not just for the artists, of course, but also for the Sioux City Art Center, so people know what we're doing and kind of see what kind of quality shows that we're putting together.
So when you've got the show, you've then got a budget because shipping, staff,
It's all about budgets. Yeah. Yeah, so the grant will include a lot of things like budget, like shipping. Honoraria is very important for us. We want to pay artists for their time and for their efforts. It's never enough, but we want artists to kind of come away from this experience not feeling like they're out of pocket, thousands of dollars. And includes travel expenses as well too, promotions as well. So we want to kind of have a full roster of line items so that we can kind of cover all the expenses. We have an exhibition coming up or an installation coming up with an artist named Amanda Browder, who's going to be who's working on this installation called Razzle Dazzle, where she's going to be covering major portions of our building with fabric, this fabric installation process she's been doing for almost 20 years. And that includes a whole nother level of line items, including fabrication costs, installation crew, scissor lifts, you name it. 2x4s, C clamps. It's just the more you know at the beginning, the more you can ask for. So when it arrives on that plate, they're like, oh yeah, they know what they're doing. They've got it all measured out. So
would the artist tell you, by the way, we're going to need a scissor lift to put this in because it's 40 feet high?
Yeah. I mean, that's something that comes with experience. You're kind of like, well, as a curator, it's my job to kind of know our building and know our building's capacities. We can't put necessarily, for example, 18 cars on the top of our roof. That's just not going to happen.
What about 14?
But 14 might work. 14 might work. But it's my job to know the capacity of our building and what we can and what we can't do. And some ideas, we'd love to do, but they don't always work out. Then other ideas, it's like, oh yeah, this is great. This could work. And so I work really early in the process to talk with, fabricators and installers to say, well, what do you think? Is this a crazy idea or can we do it? So, and usually it's a crazy idea and they can do it.
Nice.
Or that's what I hope at least. Yeah.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
And where are you finding your talent?
All over. We have in Sioux City, at least, we're focusing a little bit more on our regional artists. We have, because of what our capacities are and some of the values that we have as an organization, we're kind of looking in the 4 or 5 state region close by. So, by the way, Sioux City is located just at a really interesting corner of northwestern Iowa. So I could throw a rock at Nebraska and I can walk 2 minutes to South Dakota. So it's a really cool little area of geography. So South Dakota, Nebraska, Minnesota, Kansas, and Missouri, and then also Illinois as well too, is where we're starting at least for now. But as we get going and as we think about what other kinds of projects we have, including Amanda's, we contacted her about a year and a half ago to begin this process. And it's really, she's the only person in the world who can really pull off a project like this. But even though she's from Brooklyn, her work is so much about building community here in Sioux City. So much of the work that is done is with volunteers, with donated fabric. And she's really a channel for all of that effort and energy, so that when people see the final piece, people can literally go up and say, I made that part, or I made that part, or that's grandma's pajamas, or that's my mom's curtain fabric, So I'm trying to stay at this point in the region, and then looking farther afield for projects as they come up. So
And the museum's got a permanent collection as well, right?
we do. It's about 1,500 pieces. We are slowly adding to it. All of those galleries that we have on the first floor, when you come for a visit, Stephen, you'll see that they're all dedicated to our permanent collection. It's a little bric-a-brac. There's a lot of different strengths and sort of eccentricities, I suppose. But we're working on adding more better representation of our regional artists in there as well too. So
Nice.
yeah.
And then when you start you finding the artists and you catch them on Instagram or the portfolio reviews and everything.
Yeah.
And then how important is the text? Like how important is it for photographers and the writing and everything that they
Yeah.
have on the site?
Yeah, and thanks for bringing it back to photography as well too. But I really put a huge priority on writing. It's something that I take a lot of time with myself. And when I talk with artists about it, what I tell them is that if you can't tell me, whether it's in words or a conversation like this, what your work is about, I can't help you. I mean, I can't be your advocate. I need to know and kind of have that conversation with you and speak in a way that's clear so that I can go ask the NEA for funding, or I can go ask the national or any other funding body about to say, Stephen's work is great. Here's why you should fund it. So I put a huge priority on writing, and that's not just with artist statements, but on grants, promotional pieces. You know, if we don't have a budget for printing right now, but when that comes to writing, and the reason I put a priority on that is because I above all, I really appreciate accessibility with art. I don't want audiences to come into a place that's free, where many of the barriers to the arts have been removed, and then all of a sudden have this very opaque project that they can't really wrestle with or really figure out. I've seen that a lot of other places that I won't sort of call out here, but sometimes there's just a lack of audience, of where an audience is in terms of how artworks or exhibitions are narrated and talked about. So for me, that's just one more way to make artwork accessible, is to have it written about in a language that people can understand.
So that's really, yeah. So like you see the work and you're interested in everything, but like if you get to the statement about it and it's just like this just does not make any sense to me, you're
Yeah.
not able to, promote it in a way
Yeah.
because you're not able to connect to it. So it actually is incredibly important for the statement to be clear and
Agreed. Yeah.
concise about the bodies of work.
Ultimately, when the show opens and the artist goes back to home and continues to work on their shows, I'm here to be able to talk and engage with our audiences. I'm here to lead student tours. I'm here to talk to collectors. I'm here to talk with people about the show. So I need to be able to talk with them and meet them where they're at, and that's oftentimes very different levels of engagement with the art. Some people know a lot. Some people go to all the fairs every year. Some people don't. Some people are 8 years old and they've never seen big paintings before. so I try to really make an experience with art as accessible as possible.
Nice. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's, I mean, I think if you're not used to walking into a museum or a gallery, it
Yeah.
can be intimidating.
Very much so. I mean, you're told not to touch, don't run, don't bring your drinks in. There's so many things that are there. And then if everything reads like an efflux press release, then that's one more barrier that people have. So
We had started talking a little bit about AI and writing.
yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Well, so we talked about this in the off channel. I am sort of cautiously embracing it, but like a lot of people, very wary of the power of it. I haven't really dipped my toes in too much. When it comes to artists and our previous conversation about artist statements, it's something I've seen artists use more and more. Obviously, people are using it to help generate images from which they do their own editing as well too. I've been using it to write sort of statements. I've used it to help me with grant narratives as well too. However, I've seen some bot sort of chat GPT generated text that just read like a robot wrote it. And so I think some people just put things in there, excuse me, without really taking the time to put it in their own voice or really to make it of them, and then whatever it spits out is enough. And I don't think that's true. It doesn't come across as genuine or authentic. So
Yeah.
the analogy I use is sort of like a sourdough starter. It's just a place to start, and then you knead it, then you get it going, and then you bake it, and then it comes out as this thing. But it's very different than how it started. So yeah. So
So it's good.
I'm pro AI, but I just think like everybody, it's just something you have to be very, very careful with, I guess.
I
So
like that analogy though, that it's like it's an ingredient. Like you get it
yeah.
in there, you mess with it, but just like at least get a couple of the ideas. Maybe not all of them are gonna make
Hmm.
it, you
Yeah.
know. But maybe there's a couple of little, nuances or something that it came up with that you may not have. And then once you integrate it into your voice, like you're saying, so it's more
Yeah.
organic,
Yeah.
then it because then you're not looking at it and just knowing that Skynet sent you this press release about
Yeah.
the
It does feel a little Skynet after a while. Yeah. I mean, one way to think about it too is like I've used it as a way to just kind of get over a barrier, just to, like get through an idea that I'm stumbling with or I'm having trouble with, and then I'll get it, and then I'll move on, and then I'll just say, all right, here we go. This is the transition I was looking for, or this is the word I was trying, or this is the turn of phrase that I was trying to use, and I'll move on. So
Yeah. We're moving fast.
mm,
So do you want
I
to?
can slow down.
No, no, no. It's great.
I can slow down.
Um, I mean, let's talk. Actually, I wasn't even thinking about this, but let's talk a little bit about your photography. Like,
Yeah.
what do you shoot?
Well, it's been a minute. I've been focusing a lot on my curatorial work, but in the past, I was shooting a lot of really personal stuff, which I guess all photography is. It's hard to sort of do something that's completely not of who you are, right? This is something you probably know very well, Stephen, but um, it's been a minute. But the last project I worked on was something that I was struggling with, but I think was something that I think a lot of people are continuing to struggle with, and then maybe has become more of more accepted in like the broader imagination is not really sleep deprivation, but insomnia. I've found that the amount of technology and the amount of time that we have in technology has really changed how I turn down at night and try to sort of go to sleep and stay asleep and then get up in the morning. I find that sometimes it can be very difficult to take this thing off of my face and put it down and then go to bed and then wake up the next day. So I spent a lot of time thinking about what is it that's causing it? What is that anxiety? And for many people, I think sleep is one of those last frontiers that can't really be penetrated with a lot of things. They're still very private. They're still something that you can't really share with people. You can talk about it, and a lot of people don't like to hear about other people's dreams necessarily. But it's still a very private thing. So I found myself really struggling with finding a way to go and to stay asleep. So I took those opportunities when I was struggling to take photographs to kind of capture some of that anxiety, to capture some of that bad feeling of impending, like waking up the next day and the day feeling really horrible, as a way to kind of capture it myself, but hopefully kind of connect with people at the same time as well too. There's all kinds of research about different segmented sleep. I mean, most people don't realize that way back in the 17 and 1800s, it was very common for people to go to sleep and then to wake up at midnight or 1 o'clock and be awake for a while, write letters or eat food, and then go right back to sleep. So this idea of segmented sleep is something that is relatively old, but it's really new for us to think about getting 8 or 9 hours of completely uninterrupted sleep. And technology has really made it hard for me to kind of get that, because I find myself perhaps waking up or wondering about what work is or what emails are kind of like throbbing on the phone, waiting for me to figure out. So those photographs, there's about 30 of them, and they're all different shapes of between like 17 to 24. There's some 20 by 30s, and there's also some 12 by 12s that I did as well too, black and white in color as well too. So the series is called Wired.
I like it.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, it's fun to kind of spend that much time on a creative project, to go through that process for my own benefit. But like I said, I also think about it as a really strange form of professional development, because I think about it as making me a better curator when I can talk with a photographer and say, hey, listen, I know it's like getting the colors just right is a real pain in the butt. The right paper, you want to get that Hahnemuhle paper, or what kind of frames do you want to get? It's helpful that I can share that kind of relationship with an artist and say, all right, I know what you're going through. I know, let's figure this out together, whether it's painters or photographers or sculptors as well too. So yeah.
I'm talking about the paper and the prints and everything.
Yeah.
Getting back to
It's such a process. Yeah.
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 How important is it for you as the curator and also for the museum with editions?
To how many are in the edition, or to that artists work with editions?
I guess both. And also, yeah, does it matter for the museum if it's print number 1 out of,
Oh,
both acquisition and exhibition wise? Like, is that, something that you're looking at and thinking about, or?
it's not really the edition size or the number, the artwork in the edition stretch isn't really as important to me. I just want the best representation of your work on the wall as possible. So I want the frame to look good. I want the glass to look good. I don't want wavy mounts on boards. I want things to look as great as possible, because I see myself as a partnership with the artist. So I want a great show. Artist XYZ wants a great show. Let's have a great show. So let's kind of work together on it. And so I really appreciate artists that come with an idea of how they want their work presented, that's professional and it looks good, that it's at a standard of a museum. But I also want to share that with an artist if they're not aware of it as well too, and make suggestions as well. We had more resources when I was in the Twin Cities for some of those printers and archivists and scanners and framers. We don't have as much of that here in Sioux City, but we're working on it. But I just want artists to see this as an opportunity to really put their best foot forward, because when an artist or a collector wants to buy your work, they want to buy a pristine, beautiful thing that they can just imagine putting some corners on and going right into their home or their office. It's a hard conversation to have with an artist that says, and this has never happened, but I've heard of it happening, like they like the print, but the framing sucks, or your presentation isn't what it could be. So yeah.
It matters. I mean,
It does.
I've been framing for 20 years now, and
My wife's a framer. Yeah.
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 I remember.
Yeah.
And you get picky. I
Yeah.
start when I notice that people are making certain choices. I'm cringing a little bit. Like, why'd you go this way?
And it sort of it makes it easier for people who want to invest in your work to imagine it in their context. You can see how perhaps an artist didn't come to an opportunity thinking that this would be a project or an artwork that would have a life in a museum, perhaps, or in a private collection. But if budget and time allows, as much as you can put into that presentation, the better served you are.
I've heard that the museums generally don't want the print mounted, or they're going to get two, one that's ready to hang on the wall, but also one that's not mounted for the flat files.
Yeah, depends. I mean, if you have lots of extra storage, it'd be nice to have those flat files. We have some storage for flat files, but we also have a really good temperature controlled, light controlled facility that we can hang framed photographs on our movable walls that we move around in our storage facility. So
it's not an issue for you.
Not for us, no.
Oh, that's nice.
In fact, it's nice because if we ever do want to bring out the photograph, we don't have to take the time and the energy to reframe it. It's already framed.
Right.
And it's light locked, so it's not going to get any extra exposure on it either. So
would you say it's light locked?
There's just, it's completely dark in there. It's when the lights are on is the only time that the lights are on. There's no windows. It's completely dark. So.
I dream of a storage unit like that where it's got the movable walls, and every single piece that I've got in a frame is just like, and you just pull them back and forth to decide like, oh yeah, I need to grab this. Let me just go scan the barcode and it's like pop up and ship it off.
A really slick way to work with that, if you want, when you get to that room, Stephen, is you can make little magnets that you could put that stick to the wall behind. If you've got one of those kind of corrugated walls that you have hooks on, you can make little magnets that have like the name and the title of the piece, so you can have it there, or you can kind of move those magnets as you move the pieces. It's just a really slick way. yeah, it's just a slick way to have the information about the piece already there. So
Oh, so it's corrugated wool, you've got the hooks, and then there's also magnetized labels underneath. So anyone
yeah.
that's walking in, as long as you put the label back at the right place,
Hmm.
it's like got all the, you
Yeah.
can even put a QR code there and it'll pop up even more information on it.
Yeah. And then we'll always put like a session numbers there. So if you want to go to the database, you can pull up the full file of the object.
Full
So
history and who
yeah.
donated it or
Who
acquired
donated
it.
it, when it was in the collection, value, all that stuff.
I'm dreaming.
I know, right? He doesn't have to win the lottery. That's all.
Yeah, it's not a big
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
Um, so you said you're about a year out for
Yeah, about a year out. I'm looking at the calendar right now. We've got a couple of shows that we schedule every year. We have a Youth Art Month exhibition that we have every year. This year it's going to be middle schoolers. Next year it's going to be high schoolers. That's always blocked in like February to April. Amanda's project is going to premiere and be open for Labor Day weekend, which is our free art fair celebration called Art Splash. And Art Splash is scheduled every year on Labor Day. And then we've got exhibitions coming up. We have a large June Kaneko exhibition planned for June of 2025. June is one of the best ceramic artists we know of, and he's also very late in his career, but is really well known for really creating some of the best known monumental ceramic pieces that we have, and they're just spectacular. We were just visiting some of his studio and foundation, and it's like walking through a forest of ceramic. These things are just twice as tall as you and me, and just filled with color and pattern. They're spectacular. So
nice. And
that's
that's
coming up in 2025.
June of
June.
2025.
Yeah, and his name is June, Jun Kaneko,
Oh,
Kaneko. He's down in Omaha, so he's not too far away.
okay. So June
Yeah,
and June.
June and June. Easy to remember. See what we did there?
Exactly. I think
Yeah,
Sasha would like to see that show.
yeah. Yes, you should.
So this is awesome. Is there anything else you would like to share? I feel like I covered everything that I had on
Really?
my
That was
list.
fast.
Yeah, I know. It went fast.
Yeah,
We got to
yeah.
the
I think
additions, we got AI, we talked about the grant writing, the
yeah.
curatorial where you're seeing the work. Um,
One of the things that I'm new to Sioux City. Like I said, I've been here for a little bit less than 2 years. It'll be 2 years in February. Um, so I'm spending a lot of time. I spent a lot of time catching up on the shows that were here waiting for me. The curator that left previous to me had some shows already in the mill. So the photograph that was that we used as the title for this conversation was with an artist named Larissa Cable. And what a joy it was to work with her. She was great. I met her. I think she was one of the first studio visits I did, and we were 6 months away from working on the show, and we hit it off really, really well. And we just kind of said, "Let's do this thing," and got the show done, and it turned out really, really well. I spent the first almost 8 months working through those shows, and then started to develop my own shows, which we're now coming to the end of the first round of. But I'm also trying to get to know our community a little bit better. Trying to get to know the folks who we can call on for extended exhibition related programming. Who are some of the folks at some of the colleges and universities? Really getting to know Sioux City. It's definitely not New York. It's not Miami. It's not Chicago. It's not Minneapolis. It's its own thing. And I want to know what that own thing is. So what audiences are looking for. What are the other things that frankly are competing with other people's time? Um, and what are the things that people really seem to kind of latch onto with our shows, and what makes people want to come back? So
yeah, do you have like a post-op of the exhibitions, like looking at like how many people came through the door? Is that like something that gets into the conversation? It's like that
we
drew and this didn't, or
Yeah, we do. We have a counter who counts all of our exhibitions every single day that we're here. And one of the things that we're working on right now is creating a audience engagement survey. We want to have someone stationed either outside the exhibitions or out just inside our front door, and begin to put a scientific process on how many people are coming, what do they like, what do they hate, what makes them come back, what would make them recommend it. We need to have some hard data about what's working. I think, like I said, free is always good, but besides that, what are the things that people are really sinking their teeth into, and what are the things that are just like, meh.
Yeah.
So, which I think a lot of museums struggle with. I think finding a way to kind of talk directly to your audience and having data that you can really sink your teeth into and share with all of your staff members. So that's a goal. That's a New Year's resolution for 2024.
Raffle prizes.
Raffle prizes.
You
That's
need
right.
the B&H has that on that, like every single purchase. It's like, fill out the, review form and enter for,
Yep.
the gift card and everything. And I think it helps engagement. People will show up
Yep.
for the, whatever, even just online, they'll be more likely if they think they're going to get something out of it.
Right.
Sad, but
And one of the things that we're working with are free memberships, obviously, for the artists that we're working with. It's the least that we can do to kind of share with them, hey, you had a great experience here. We hope you want to come back. We hope you want to tell your family about it as well too. So
yeah.
the least that we can do to kind of continue to work with our artists, who obviously spend a lot of time and energy, bringing their work to us. So
Fantastic.
yeah.
Oop, oop.
So, sorry, I had a little bit of a snafu there. There we go. Sorry about that.
It's
So,
all right.
yeah. So there's a lot of unique communities here. Like with Amanda's project, we've been able to kind of go to a lot of sites. I think the beauty of her project is that you remove the expectation that people want to come to the museum. That's like, don't you want to come see what we're doing? And it's really helpful for the museum. In many cases, it's me or it's my coworkers to go out to the community, to go to the coffee roaster, to go to the senior center, to go to the library, to go to the college, to really meet people where they're at, rather than constantly trying to use the tractor beam to bring more people into the art center, to the museum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's not easy. It takes a lot of work, but it's ultimately it's really important. It just makes us better representatives of our community, and we are connected to the city of Sioux City, so we are a city organization.
Yeah. Is there a photo community there? Is there like a
There are some. There is a longstanding photo club that does meet here. The club's been around for, gosh, I think maybe even 80 years. It's kind of ebbed and flowed. There are some younger photographers as well too. Over in Des Moines, there are some really great photographers. Molly Wood is one of them. We've shown her work. Ron Johns, we just featured an exhibition by him where he worked with our local NPR radio station and their station manager, Mark Munger. He took photographs of people who were being interviewed by Mark, who were talking about their experiences with COVID.
okay.
And some of these interviews are just they're really dramatic. Some of them are really funny, but some of them are just really hard to listen to. Some people went through quite a bit. And I think the beauty of Mark's project, or Ron and Mark's project, is that they hit a pretty broad, diverse community of people throughout what we call Siouxland. So that includes South Dakota, Nebraska as well too. But Ron's probably perhaps one of the most well-known photographers, and we are really excited to show his exhibition here. So
Nice.
yeah.
I am
So,
pro photo festival, just like,
yeah.
Photoville and the fence and everything. Like, I think that's a great draw, and same, with Photo Fest and the programming, and the portfolio reviews and everything. So just saying, if you got a parking lot, I know a guy that's got some containers,
Yeah. Well, that's something we should talk about, Stephen. There's a lot of trains here. There's a lot of infrastructure. There's, we're right on the Missouri River as well too. So there's a lot of stuff that you'd probably be interested in checking out. So
I was just on Google Earth checking ever so slightly to
yeah.
possibly talk about that, because it's like, oh yeah, those are very aligned. I got there's some nice backgrounds, so
Yep. Keep it in mind.
I would love
So,
that.
yeah.
All right, well, Chris, thank you so much for this.
Sure.
We had a wonderful time, and this was such a wonderful episode to wrap up the 2023 season of Refractions.
Thanks so much for the invitation. I appreciate it. It's always nice to talk to you.
You too. So much fun.
There's so much more to talk about, Stephen.
Always. All right. Thank you, B&H. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you next year. All right.
Thank you.